Welcome to another edition of Cowbell Live series, Meet the Instructors. I am here with one of our instructors for the Community and Organizing track, Lori Taniguchi. Hi, Lori. How are you doing today?
Hi, Laura. I'm doing great. In school, some people would say Lori Tamagotchi back when those were popular. I don't know if you remember those, but that was like the closest thing to my name. So anything from that to, Japanese pronunciation works for me.
I'll keep working at it. How do you say it? Can you say it for me?
Sure. Taniguchi.
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 I will practice.
Yeah.
Lori, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from, and your involvement in your local swing scene?
I'm Lori, and I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a native Bay Area person. In fact, my family's been living in the Bay Area for generations. I'm fourth generation Japanese American on my dad's side and sixth generation Chinese on my mom's side. So I'm mixed Asian, but of course doesn't like really show a lot. And I grew up very active in cultural communities. I'm on the steering committee for Wednesday Night Hop, which is a weekly dance event in Palo Alto. I was up until just before the pandemic teaching also in San Francisco for Mission Mondays at the Women's Center in San Francisco, along with Nathan Diaz. I sometimes am asked to teach at these various other events, various things. So I've taught Balboa, say at Breakaway Swing for these 2-month sort of series with Douglas Matthews, who's been my longtime collaborator, dance partner, ready for anything. I started emceeing because I was the one person probably not afraid of a microphone at Wednesday Night Hop. So when we started planning Swinging at the Savoy, for which I've been on the organizing committee for that since it started, which is a little scary to think of. Yeah, not so much anymore. I've decided to take a backseat role and just be an MC. And I've been MCing for them, as well as sometimes I MC for, the Switch Workshop, which is Everybody Leads, Everybody Follows, dance role workshop in Oakland. And yeah, I've emceed for other events like Weirdo Weekend in San Francisco. I DJ. Obviously, at some point, you just get so obsessed with the music, you want to play all the songs that you love. So I DJ sometimes at weekly events. I teach. I teach classes, private lessons, group classes. Sometimes the big beginner ones are my favorite. They're so fun. And I teach all the swing dances, except for shag. I definitely outsource shag. I'm not great at shag.
What is your experience with inclusion or inclusivity in the swing scene?
Okay, so two answers to this. One is a very pat answer, which I think is why a class like this is really important for everyone, is because everyone has had a point, maybe not in swing dance, maybe in other ways, where they feel like they're excluded. They're like, I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. I don't understand what's happening. Everyone is talking in this certain way, and I don't feel like I'm in the in group. And especially when you're trying to create communities where the big message is everyone is welcome, if you don't feel that way, it just heightens that sense of isolation, right? So I would say that I'm really interested in inclusion because I know what exclusion feels like, as do you. And I know what it feels like when I'm included, which feels great, and as do you. So I have that base level experience. But to be more specific, when we talk about inclusion, usually we're not talking about that general feeling of inclusion. I feel like as a racial, sexual, even age, because considering swing demographic, minority, I have some amount of experience traversing back and forth that exclusion line, right? And I think that traveling over that line is really what gives me that experience, right? So as a Japanese Chinese American, and as also an Asian American who then lived in Japan for a while in a really rural area, feeling like you look like you include, but you're not included. The feeling of being here and looking like, acting like you include, but maybe some people look and they don't include you. Being a sexual minority, which up until very recently did not feel included at all. Like, I have 2 wedding dates because I got married on the year that I wanted to get married. And the next year I got married because the Supreme Court came around. And so having policy changes that affect your life in a very integral way, I feel like I have some understanding, of how much of impact you can make as an organizer, making a policy or a change in wording to make those people feel included. It's like your amount of effort is probably this and as an organizer, and then that amount of like effect is probably like that, right? So I feel like I have some experience moving back and forth across various lines that groups of people tend to think of like, I can't cross that, or I don't belong here, or no one wants me here. Those are boundaries that we have in our minds. So I've done that.
What should people expect from this class?
I think that in the class, when we talk about inclusion, the first things that I'm going to be doing is asking people, what do you mean by that? And I think Odysseus Baylor had mentioned this early on in one of his in one of his classes. He's like, you can't just say I want to be inclusive and then that's it. The reality is we are inclusive towards specific groups. And you have to keep those in mind, right? You have to acknowledge that you're already inclusive of a certain group, right? And you're already exclusive of certain groups. So if you're going to include new people, what do those new people need? What do those new people need to feel included? And then I think the second question, which you need to ask yourself, is how does making my scene inclusive and accessible to those people also raise up our scene as a whole?
What is your favorite thing about cowbell? Like what stands out to you that's near and dear to your heart?
I would say the dancing and the people. So for me, who probably like a lot of people started with Lindy Hop and came to Balboa later, Cowbell was a place where I felt like I could be creative in Balboa. I could just try new things. And people were always so wonderfully warm about that. And going onto a floor that was so Balboa centered and everyone's just trying to have a good time, and making those real close Balboa connections on the dance floor, it feels so good. And actually at Cowbell, I started taking the beginner intensive classes as well. And I started taking the Balboa beginner intensive classes because I was teaching Balboa now. And I wanted to see how like world class instructors taught Balboa, and it was the best. So I think like for 3 of those 4 years, I took the Balboa intensive beginner course, the crash course, every single time. And I have to admit several awesome things about this. Like it was very cool that it was in the afternoon, so I could be at late night, and then I would like go to the beginner, and then I would go to class, so I didn't have to miss classes. It was cheaper, which is great because I was a dance teacher and I don't have much money. And you got to experience all these great instructors talk about the dance in very fundamental core belief ways. So seeing those how to introduce people into the Balboa scene at that fundamental level was super important for me as a dance teacher and especially as a Balboa instructor. It was super helpful. Anyways, that's one of the reasons I love Cowbell.
Yay. I love that so much. That's awesome. Thank you, Lori. I'm so excited. I'm so happy that you're part of our community. It's really, you're a blessing.